Hello, everybody. How are we today? Um, so I'm going to give everybody a couple of minutes to get in on YouTube. I um was trying to make it so that I could see everybody on Facebook too. But that won't happen unless I specifically watch it on Facebook. But I can see the comments on YouTube. So, how is everybody? I hope everybody's doing well. Oh crap, I forgot to set up for the poll that I wanted to do. Dang it. I knew I was forgetting something. Oh well, we'll just do a verbal poll, actually. I should be able to do it this way. Bear with me for just a minute. I'm over here slacking. Here we go. All right. Okay, so I am going to enter in a poll here. Let's see. There we go. Maybe. Maybe I will end up having a poll. Possibly. That's not what I want. Oh, no thank you, Bear. No thank you, Bear. I apologize for the dog in the background. Oh, now I've got both of them. Hold on one moment, everybody. Okay, so now that the dogs are done barking, I was going to do a poll, but it's not working for me. I'm gonna have to set it up before stream next time. Um, because I'm just ridiculous like that. Um, but I'll just ask it and you guys can put your answers in the chat. Um, so I'm going to go over the Melody Ferris case out of Alpharetta, Georgia. And the first one that I'm going to play as far as the videos go is a overview from Vinnie Politan about the case. It is everything up to day one of the trial, including what Melody is charged with, what she is accused of, all of that. Then we can do the trial one of two ways. We can either go step by step throughout the entire trial for day 1 through day 6, or we can go through and just recap days 1 through 6, as we are currently day 6 concluded today and day 7 will begin tomorrow. So put a 1 in the chat if you want me to cover it day by day and do the full day. It'll still go a little bit quicker as we will be able to skip through breaks and lunches and things like that. Or do you want me to recap so that we get caught up with where the trial's at and then start watching in depth each day of the trial from there forward? And that would be option 2. So put a 1 in the chat for the first one and 2 in the chat for the second. Here we go. Sorry, guys. I am now inputting the poll. It's letting me finally. So go each day. Skip through breaks. Oh, I apologize. I was not expecting that. I have like a dry spot in my throat all of a sudden. Give me one moment. All right. I apologize for that little coughing fit. I had a dry spot in my throat. I'm not used to talking as much as I have over the course of today. So while I have that poll up on the screen and I give everybody some time to vote, we are going to go over the recap of the case against Melody Walker Ferris. using a Court TV video that I found. Vinny Politan does a very good job of covering everything that happened up to day one of the trial. So we will be looking at that.
Murdering her husband, Gary Ferris. She's facing 3 charges: murder with malice, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and concealing the death of another. On July 5th, 2018, Ferris's son discovered his father's remains on a burn pile on the family property. Gary Ferris was 58 years old and was a prominent attorney. He founded the Atlanta office for the regional law firm Burr and Foreman. Gary and Melody had a strained relationship, and although married for decades, they slept on different floors of their home, and she was having an affair. WXIA was at Ferris's preliminary hearing.
They would meet at a hotel in Dalton, spend the day together, and then both drive back home.
The night before Ferris's remains were found, Melody Ferris told her boyfriend her estranged husband's body was on a burn pile.
He is on the burn pile. Rusty said in response, he said, "What?" She again said, "He is on the burn pile."
Melody Ferris was arrested almost a year later in Tennessee. Investigators determined Gary died of a gunshot wound. They found a bullet in Ferris's ribs. They had also found droplets of Gary's blood all over the home. Melody's attorney spoke to WXIA.
And there are a lot of things that are missing, and there are a lot of things, frankly, they didn't find. I believe, just like she told me when I first met her, she's 100% innocent of these charges.
Some of Melody's own children have publicly said they don't believe her.
How about this case out of Georgia? Today was day one in the trial. You had opening statements and things getting underway here. Let's take a look.
You do not have to ask yourself, was Gary murdered? He was. You do not have to ask yourself, was Gary Ferris burned on a burn pile? He was. The question you have to ask is, who did this? The evidence demands an answer. And the answer is close. It's close to me. It's close to you. It was close to Gary. You see Gary is in this picture, and this is a happy time. This is Emily, the bride in the middle, a daughter. Unfortunately for this family is they have drama. They are not a perfect family. The defendant, she liked the life of being married to a rich lawyer. One thing with lawyers, the longer they do it, the longer they get better at it, the more they get better at it, and they stay at it. But sometimes what they do is they don't interact with, because they interact with people all day long. Oftentimes when they get home, they get close, they get small. And Gary's like that. In their wedding, their marriage, they had some issues that we're going to talk about. And it looks like they were happy here. This is about 2016, but there was a lot going on behind the scenes. How do you get away with a murder if there's no confession? How do you get away with a murder if there's no video of it? How do you get away with a murder if you try to burn and destroy all the evidence? You don't. When you use your common sense and all the evidence to put it together to shrink the world, and the only reasonable answer is she did it. The reason why you shrunk the world down, and you will see at the times in this case, when he was killed and when his body was moved, when things are going on, the only person that's going to be at that house, the only person is her. No one else. Just her.
Everything that was done in this case was tailored specifically to attempt to convict Melody of the death of Gary Ferris. One big thing you're going to hear, and you're going to hear it a lot, is Scott Ferris. You are going to hear the 911 call here shortly. That's the first thing we're going to do. I'm going to play you the 911 call. 13 minutes after law enforcement arrives, Scott Ferris is already blaming his mother. He knows nothing. They're not even sure if there is a body on the burn pile. They're not even sure it's Gary. He's already planting the seeds of blaming his mother. 13 minutes. And law enforcement took that into their beliefs. And then they focused their evidence on that. And that is confirmation bias. She lived upstairs. Gary lived downstairs. It was just how they had done it. It had always been that way for years. Ever since the 90s. They lived 2 separate lives. They would sometimes go days without even seeing each other, without speaking to each other. They didn't really talk. Didn't really communicate. They did. You know, they had kids. So they did some of these family things together. But for the most part, they were just married people who did their own thing. Where was he shot in the house? The evidence is going to show while there may be some blood, and that was not tested, so we'll call it maybe blood. Upstairs in the in Melody's portion of the house, we'll call it, and a trail leading downstairs to Gary's portion, we'll call it. You're also going to get evidence from, most likely from Amanda, how a few days before that Gary had been bitten by one of Melody's dogs on the ankle and was bleeding as he walked down the stairs down to his room so that he could stop the bleeding in his ankle. And that's where the blood came from. Where is the gun? Don't know that either. Where are the bullets? They're in Scott's house.
All right. Jennifer Brandt, 38 years together. Do they sound like clients of yours living separate lives since the 90s? Like
100%, Vinny. It happens all the time. So I'm not surprised or shocked by this at all. There are many, many couples out there that live like this, separate in the same household for many, many years before they ever decide to get divorced. So it's not so uncommon, and it doesn't mean necessarily that she killed him just for that fact alone.
Well, I want to get into that. Does it, like, if you're able to live a separate life, does that make it less of a motive to commit the murder if you're already sort of separate but together? You don't have to go to court. You don't have to split everything in half. I'm wondering, what is...
Well, here's the thing, Vinny. When the problems usually occur when it's about money. Something happens financially between the two of them. You know, there was someone talking about an extramarital affair, but in this situation, I don't know how much that would impact anything because they were already living separately. But if there's anything financial, someone... You know, the husband was deciding maybe that he didn't want to pay all the bills or support her anymore because it seemed like he was the breadwinner. It didn't seem like she was working. So that could cause some tension. That could upset her. That could upset their situation and maybe cause her to act in a certain way. So I'm sure that some of that will be explored in this case. What's really sad, Vinny, is that their own son, you know, is the one that is allegedly calling out his mother right away, if you believe the defense, and saying, you know, that she had something to do with it. So there was real tension in this family, amongst the children, amongst the parties, a bad situation, common in my world, but, you know, nonetheless, who knows, you know, what exploded and what could have happened. We'll find out.
Al, do you think, it almost sounded to me like the defense is going to, like, sort of, hey, we should be taking a look at the son here.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right. It sounds to me like that's the situation that you're saying, well, wait a minute, you know, he thinks he doth protest too quickly. Okay, we didn't even know whose body was on that pile. We didn't know that it was the father. We didn't know this. We didn't know that. And all of a sudden, he's got the finger pointed at mom. And therefore, the motive is going to be inheritance. Okay, that would be the situation on that. Because if something happened to him, it would go to the wife. The wife's not there. She killed him. Therefore, it would be divided up amongst the kids. That may be the defense. I think it's kind of a weak defense. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's not the kind of defense you'd be doing if you're talking about the dog biting your ankle and there's a little driblets of blood coming down the steps because of a dog bite. Okay, so I don't know where the defense is going with this. I wasn't particularly happy with either opening, to be quite candid with you. I didn't really, you know, whenever the prosecution starts with, and guess what, you know, so-and-so is not going to come walking through that door. I mean, I always hate that opening line. And this guy was like so prominent with it in the beginning of his you know, opening that it just really just turned me off at that point.
Lack of a murder weapon here, Philip Dubé. Is that going to loom large?
No, they don't need it. You know why? They have a bullet lodged in his rib cage. It's not that hard to, you know, do a one and done it and get rid of the gun. That's not uncommon at all. What she has going against her, unfortunately, is Georgia law. And maybe Jennifer can weigh in on this. Georgia is one of the few states, Vinny, in family law where if you get a divorce due to infidelity, and I think there's a factual development coming that she was having an affair with a Roy Barton out of Tennessee, that would significantly reduce her portion of the marital assets, the equitable distribution under Georgia law. It would not be a 50-50 split. And perhaps she was afraid that if she just filed for divorce, she wasn't going to get her cut, that a family law judge could maybe give her 20% or 25% for being the impetus behind the divorce, based on a form of what I call archaic misconduct. I don't necessarily agree with it, but that's Georgia law. But no, I don't think they need the weapon itself because they have proof that he was shot in the ribs.
38 years together, Jennifer. 38 years. And it seems for at least 30 of them, they're living separate lives. I don't understand.
Oh, Vinny, this is not uncommon. As I said before, I mean, people are married even longer than that and are getting divorced. It's gray divorce. You hear it all the time. It's probably the most prominent amount of people that are getting divorced once they reach that mark or even beyond that. So
wow,
not unusual.
Oh.
Not unusual.
All right.
Manslaughter's only 15.
There you go.
Not with a gun. Not with a gun, my man.
Al Wunsch, Philip Dubé, Jennifer Brandt, thank you all so much. Great to have you. When we come back, I'll reveal something else you need to know tonight. Plus, coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, the trial.
All right. So as you can see, with the Melody Ferris case, and we are going to get up our next video. I don't know why it's doing that. Shouldn't be showing that screen. It should be showing. There we go. That's the one that it should be showing. All right. So with the Melody Ferris case, as of right now, and I apologize that there was the notification at the bottom of the screen. I was unable to get rid of that. It was frozen there. But basically, as you can see, the prosecution is clearly stating that Melody shot her husband and burned him on the burn pile because she was having an affair and facing a lack of marital assets if they got divorced. Now, I do know that Gary Ferris had filed for divorce. That is something that they do talk about later on in the trial. They also had called both Chris and Scott Ferris to the witness stand, and they also called Emily Ferris so far out of the 4 children that Mr. and Mrs. Ferris had together. What I find really interesting is in the trial, you will hear a lot of officers saying that a particular officer was processing the scene, and then you will come to find out that, oh no, it wasn't this person that processed the scene. It was this person. And you will find that there were a lot of blood samples that personally I feel like they should have taken samples of, but they ended up not taking any samples of. And so I really find that very interesting, to be honest. Yeah, we'll leave that full screen. Yes. The reason why I find that really interesting is because I feel like some of the areas that they failed to take blood samples in would have been excellent sources such as a fairly large blood drop that was on the kitchen floor. And I understand that, it could have been decided to not collect it for 1,001 reasons. It looked to be a fairly well preserved blood splatter, and to me, it would have just made a lot of sense to collect it, see whose DNA it was, if it came back as human, if it came back as Melody Ferris, Gary Ferris, Chris Ferris, Scott Ferris, especially since Scott Ferris is right now considered to be one of the, I don't know how you really want to say it, but one of the main suspects outside of Melody Ferris. So to me, that just really makes it a very interesting thing, especially since there had been some arguing between Gary Ferris and his children over spending. How much they were spending, because Gary Ferris went ahead and was really supporting his sons and their lifestyle. You will hear Scott Ferris talk about regular outings to Twilight Golf. And while they do claim it was fairly affordable, between like $20 and $30, they were still doing that several times a week sometimes. And that can get fairly costly. Having to pay all of Scott's bills and Chris's bills can be very taxing on a couple, especially a couple that is already having marital issues. That's not going to make it any easier. While I'm still not entirely sure how I feel so far as Melody Ferris goes, I'm not convinced either way that she did or did not do this. I just know that there is enough discrepancies to warrant analyzing it with a little more scrutiny. I am going to close the poll. We will see what the outcome of the poll was. I'm pretty sure that as of right now, nobody voted on the poll. I am checking right now. Or at least attempting to. Bear with me for just a moment. All right, so as I thought, nobody voted, which is all right. So what we are going to do then is we are going to start watching day one of the trial. We will go over day one, and we will start having a bit of a discussion over it. We'll watch the opening statements. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about the opening statements. And we will be able to really hear with our own words the full opening statements for both the prosecution and the defense. We will talk about what is going to change with testimony, as far as what the prosecution shows versus what the defense shows. And maybe we will make it into the first witness before I call it a night, because we are hitting almost 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I figure by the time we get through opening statements and possibly on to the first witness, we will be looking at sometime after 10, closer to 10:30. So let's get on with it.
Couldn't seem to find the right fit.
And I apologize for the ads. So let's see. This judge can be really funny sometimes.
It says Lacey in crime. I thought it was like live in crime. Law and crime. Okay, that's what I thought. All right. And are you going to be using anything other than your phone, or do you have?
And this coverage comes from Law and Crime Trials.
So you're good. Okay, so yeah, you can use their feed for whatever. I'm going to give all y'all some other instructions. I anticipate as this case progresses, it's going to get more attention, and so we're going to have more folks join us, which is fine. But my goal will be to, if y'all have any questions or concerns or what y'all need to be doing, let me know. I talked to the CourtTV folks and kind of gave them the outline of what I wanted last week. So I'm going to kind of go back over that with y'all. All right, so I have the Tribune.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
This is from the Tribune. All right, and you're wanting to use your phone to record and then also take some photographs. All right, I'm going to give y'all some guide rules on photographs in just a second.
Small business loan. Fast.
I got this.
Lone Falcon!
And then this is something else from CourtTV, but I thought I already signed theirs. Maybe I didn't. I thought I had someone from CBS or some other local. All right. All right, just print it off and give it to Tracy. What are you going to be doing other than sitting in the room? Tapped into their feed. All right. And all right, so here's what I told them about. They got everything set up in the courtroom. I'm not crazy about it. It's not the way I wanted to handle it. And I'll probably do things differently next time, but we've gotten a new system since then that should be able to handle all this because we already have cameras in the courtroom, as y'all can see. But the feed is not set up the way that I think we could do it the way it needs to be handled, but maybe I can do it next time, and definitely going to do something different with the audio. But anyway, we'll deal with that next time y'all come in or want another courtroom. To the extent that anyone wants to take photographs, y'all can take photographs in the courtroom. If y'all want to take photographs of the defendant coming in or leaving, that's fine. Don't get anything with the jury. That's the biggest thing. We identified them when we gave them their number paddles, but after that, we've been referring to them by number. They don't want to be involved in this process and be publicly introduced to anyone. So keep them out of it. If you are going to want to do any kind of coverage outside the building or even in the hallways in the building, my goal is to be as cooperative with y'all as possible. All right. I just want to know where you're going to be and where you're going to be doing something, and I want you to check in with the court administrator's office, and I think Mandy Grizzle is going to be the one that would designate. And it's not really more of I want to limit where you are, it's where the best place for you to be would be. So we have other court that's going to be going on. We have all every conference room in this building is booked. There are people in them. The courthouse is completely filled. So if you're recording in front of Judge Baker's courtroom, it's likely there are going to be people coming in and out of there. So Mandy can probably guide you better where in the building.
Okay, so I want to say really fast that this poor judge has had one heck of a time making sure that everybody stays away from media and other people that they could talk to as far as the jury goes. So you will see that be a recurrent theme throughout the course of this poor child's 6 days of break. He is constantly telling everybody that they have to have a bailiff with them, that they can go for walks, but they have to stick to certain areas. Otherwise, the media can try and talk to them, or they can hear things that they're not supposed to. And just nobody is listening. You know the meme where there's a whole bunch of little ducklings scattered all over and going every which way, and it says that, oh, look, you found your ducks, but they're not in a row. Yeah, that is exactly what this poor judge is going through with all of these jurors. I will go ahead and go back to being quiet, and we will resume listening to the judge.
The best place to be would be to set up if you want to have a, live on scene reporter talk about whatever. If you're going to do that and bring in another camera crew for that purpose, I'm fine with that. Just let her know what you're doing and when you're planning on doing it. I probably don't have a lot of control about what y'all do outside, except that the jurors are going to be parked outside. There's going to be a designated spot for the jurors for the rest of the week, so I want you to avoid that area. I think that's going to be inside, underneath the parking deck. So y'all probably wouldn't want to do a shot under there because you're not going to have good light, etc. When I talked to the CourtTV folks about it last week, they said, well, we would probably rather do the front of the courthouse anyway. It's a better shot, but then someone set up this afternoon on top of the parking deck, which I don't really, and shot back toward the back entrance of the building, which I don't really care. Again, it's making sure you're out of sight of the jurors. I also have security concerns. And so if you're filming around the building and the building is going to be in the shot, I would prefer that you check in with security and let them know what you're doing. They are not going to tell you that you cannot film. They may have a preference as to what your sight lines are. And that's because of security concerns. It's not that I think y'all are going to do anything else. I'm afraid of the guy who's going to show up next week with the camera and start taking pictures of the courthouse and video and everything, and then saying he's with the media and no one pay him any mind, and then him come back in a few weeks and do something else. Okay, so again, I'm not going to tell y'all can't do something, but security may say, can you shoot from this angle, and you can do that because we have cameras and things around the building. Okay, so if anybody has any questions or concerns about any of that, just when we're at a break or at the end of the day or beginning of the day, give me a shout. And then, like I said, if you're doing something inside the building, check in with Mandy. She may want a deputy around y'all as well, just to make sure everyone leaves y'all alone. But the jurors are going to be in the back, and I'm going to have a bailiff with them when they come and go. Did I ask if anybody? I don't think I asked if we had any smokers in the group. I'll ask them that when I do my charge, my opening. All right, so I've signed everybody's Rule 22s that I have. Tracy will print out yours, and we'll take care of that. All right, anything else we need to take up before we get started with the jury?
Judge, the only thing is that after we do our openings, we can take a short break.
We will take a short break. The camera crew wants to do a short break so they can reset that camera so it's out of the way of everything too. They're there for openings, and they're going to move it back here for. They're going to move it a lot, but they're going to move it closer to the speaker than where it is currently. All right, for the lawyers, I know y'all didn't ask for the additional scrutiny. If there's some issue that happens because of that, or y'all need a break, or things go sideways and you need a recess to go compose yourself or something, just let me know. We'll manage it. It's going to be we all got used to doing this during COVID, and we've kind of gotten out of the habit of doing it regularly